Hey everyone, welcome to the StoryDads. This week we have Joseph Barkley, one of the world's top executive coaches with the firm Novus Global, joining us to discuss The Iron Giant from 1999. This episode we get into the relationship between power, gentleness, and weakness. We discuss deep spiritual truths and why the Christ-like sacrifice at the end is so important to make the story work. And we discuss why The Iron Giant might just be one of the best Superman films ever made. Be sure to like and subscribe and let us know what you think.
Okay, so let's introduce JKB. I got the official introduction for you from
Ari.
From the one and only, the great Ari. And it starts off by saying that your most important and exciting work is raising your two daughters. And I'm very familiar with all of your work, and I have to agree that's accurate. You've done a lot of great stuff. However, raising Tessa and Marlo is your greatest work to this date. TBD, they're young.
Yeah. It could still go sideways. We'll see.
Still go sideways. At this point, I feel like they have a lot to say in that. But yeah, so former television and film songwriter.
An amazing music video. We'll link to it in the show notes. Go check it out.
Yes, we will. We will for sure. My wife actually was a huge fan of your band before ever attending your church or meeting you.
That's right? Wild.
Yeah.
Well, there were tens of them.
Yeah, about 1,000 times as many people listen to this show. So you were an independent musician playing over 250 dates a year. You wrote songs for many hit TV shows, including Grey's Anatomy, 2020, General Hospital, One Life to Live. I don't know if we'll get to that, but maybe that's another episode someday to talk about like just being a professional artist in that space, because I feel like that's also something that you and I have in common, where it's like you're crushing it, it's thankless. I don't know, just all the various opinions on like what it means to be a professional artist. Anyway, sidebar. You've grown several nonprofits from very small grassroots things into multi-million per year donations. And you personally, I know that your reach has gone out globally in terms of those nonprofits. Public speaker, you grew your YouTube channel to 18,000 weekly visits. I wish you would do that for us. That's what we're really doing here. Author of 3 books, published over 100 songs, and you're currently world-renowned, globe-trotting, barrier-smashing public speaker and executive coach and you can introduce that firm, but it's a coaching firm called Novus Global. I highly recommend everyone listening to this. I'll shamelessly plug you. Go check out their site, look them up. Not just Novus, but Novus Global.
Correct.
Novus Global.
Yes.
And most importantly today, you love story. And you love being a dad. And so yes. I don't know, maybe we just start with, if there's anywhere you want to start, but I'm just curious about your connection to stories. Like what is that?
Yeah, I think in my communication, the skill that I'm most excited to keep growing in is storytelling. And one of the reasons is because it is generally the most memorable part of any interaction I have with another human. We may share facts and figures, and I'm really excited today if we get to talk about some of the abstract ideas that come up in the film that I chose. And at the end of the day, there are emotions, impressions, abstract experiences, even principles that are frankly most like welded into our memory because they came to us through story. So I think actually, to go sideways on it a little bit, I think that's the proliferation of rap music and country western music is because they're better storytellers than rock music. For instance, to use another art form. I think that the best visual art, even if it's still, is essentially giving you like there's a story within this frame. Something's happening or something's occurring or something has just happened. And so, I have a conviction actually that we are living within a story that is being told, and finding the part we want to play and get to play in that story is the height of human flourishing. So I think it's all around us, and the better we get at it, I think the better we get at expressing the most important things that are frankly, I think that the most important ideas are so expansive and complex that they cannot fully be expressed through facts and figures. And so that's where story steps in.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's
I'm curious for as kind of maybe a follow up on that. So like this podcast, we're talking about kid stories and unpacking them and kind of nerding out on all the adult aspects you may not see. Asked Jordan this question last week. Did the way you view stories shift after becoming a dad? When Tessa Marlo was born, how did that shift the way you engaged with stories, if at all?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind, Eric, is that I remember growing up and seeing myself in every movie. And now when I watch movies, I see my kids.
That's good.
So I watched Rocky and I was going to be a boxer.
Yeah.
I watched The Karate Kid and I suppose it was just fighting movies.
Yeah.
I watched Airwolf and I was going to pilot a highly technical helicopter.
Right.
That was it. But then now, less and less do I could identify with the character in the film, and that's fun. But I find myself seeing my kids in it, or seeing what the world is like for my kids in it. And even movies that are not expressly about like a parent relationship or about children. It's interesting. Maybe I haven't really thought about this, but maybe it's just part of the natural order of things that as we create offspring, then our story is getting told or extended through them now. We're sort of handing off part of our story.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, like, as my kids have started getting older, my oldest is 7 right now, I'm getting excited about, like, oh, he's almost old enough, I can show him this movie that I've loved. And that feels like such a moment to me. And I'm trying to self-analyze myself and figure out, like, what's going on there? Like, why am I... Is it the values behind it? Is it the moment that we get to share and experience together going through that? There's something about movies in particular, but like could be any type of experience you have in experiencing a story.
Oh yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah, it's music, it's movies, and I would say TV shows. Art. You know, my wife's favorite television show of all time probably is Family Ties, and so to watch the comprehensive library of Family Ties with our kids and them kind of like it was pretty great.
Yeah, pretty brutal. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'd love a game.
This actually came up in our Little Mermaid episode. Where for the first time
Which
ever,
I've
I realized
to. I'm a completist. I've listened to everything you've put out, top to bottom.
So in Little Mermaid, the realization that King Triton is the character with the biggest arc in that whole thing, and that but again, I only as a dad watching it now, looking back and going, oh, like King Triton is who needs to change throughout this process in order to complete Ariel's vision. Like it's a reverse prodigal kind of story, but and then what you said,
and something that maybe some of your listeners know about Hollywood, to use that as a general term, is that for the most part, it's mothers and fathers who are creating the things that we're watching. So on the one hand, it makes a lot of sense with how they're portraying what they want for the world, or how they understand maturing and wisdom. And, you know, this is probably a conversation for a different time. It also is part of why I have such a struggle watching some of like the party high school movies that are classic. Like in the 80s, it was a big deal. And there was some in the early 2000s where just high school kids behaving poorly. And I think a 51-year-old man wrote this about a 17-year-old girl. I'm not into it.
Right. Yeah. It's and now I also have heard an interesting commentary on Pixar's kind of arc, and that they started as being movies written from the perspective of parents raising children, and that they have turned into the perspective of children. And and I wonder if some of that is generational, like all the people that started Pixar were a little bit older from a generation that tended to have children and have families, and that now as storytelling is being handed off to a largely more individualistic, you know, self-concerned, single and childless generation, that they're like, well, all the stories are really about me, and they're still about me, instead of coming from a place where I'm going to write a story that was about me when I was small, which I can now see through the eyes of offspring. And I wonder if there's something to that, sort of like how some of the best like American like films about America are written by immigrants or by like Europeans or foreigners, that there's like having just a little bit of distance from the experience allows an artist to see it in a way that someone within the experience can't, because you know, a kid who's taking karate classes is never going to write Karate Kid, because that's not how they want their story to go. Like none of us want our stories to go that way. So let's jump into the movie. Why don't you introduce what you selected and tell us why?
Yes. Yeah. So I selected Iron Giant. And it ranks within my top 10 of animated features of all time. Less about the craft of animation, although there's moments in it that I think are brilliant, which I can highlight, and more about the concepts that it explores. And as I've gotten older and have played with the idea of power and its relationship to gentleness and humility, movies like The Iron Giant stand out to me as a pretty decent conversation about rather than like the removal of power or the resistance to power, is the redirection of power to provide life. And one of the things I love about Iron Giant is, I could be wrong about this, but I do think that it's maybe the most recent experience of Warner Brothers at its conveying what I think is Warner Brothers animation's DNA, way back to the early Bugs Bunny cartoons, all the Looney Tunes stuff, where it was essentially satisfying to two audiences, the parents and the kids. Warner Brothers crushes at that. So there's humor that I didn't understand when I was younger. I understand differently now. It could play as like a comedic adventure for just grown-ups. It just happens to have a young boy as the center of the story. And there's other films that do this very, very well. I just think Warner Brothers has a particular way of doing it in a way that's almost PG-13, but they get away with it because of the veneer that it's in. And I know up until now, you guys have generally done Disney films, and not exclusively, but you've generally done those. And so I liked also just a departure from that. There's a lot of respect of the Disney canon and Disney Pixar. And now I think this is a pretty decent introduction from a different studio. So
yeah, I love that. I've never considered that about Warner Brothers DNA, but I think that's right on. And it even makes me think of growing up watching Animaniacs and stuff, where
yeah, exactly,
it's got this subliminal primetime humor, but completely digestible right after school. And so you're so right about that. And it's one of the things that's kind of maybe tragic about Iron Giant is that it was sort of the swan song for their animation department,
right?
Their feature animation department.
Well, because I was gonna jump and ask, like, what other big animated stuff did Warner Brothers do? Like, what else?
They're rehashing stuff. There's like,
well, because all the things I think of are the TV shows you brought up, like the Animaniacs, the Looney Tunes, all those.
Well, so their biggest thing probably is Space Jam, I would imagine.
Okay, sure.
It's got to be the biggest example of their feature-length animation.
But so when I'm thinking Warner Brothers animation, it's the Looney Tunes world. It's all that.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that speaks to like the legacy, because the Looney Tunes canon, I mean, that's got to be hundreds of hours worth of animated content with, and weirdly, even though they were, episodic, there is this arc to like the Looney Tunes universe in terms of the relationships of the characters given over the decades. And then back in that era for a long time, there were only a couple of players in the game. It was part of why we do so much Disney, is because until the last maybe 15 or 20 years, it was kind of Disney or nothing.
Yeah.
Or it was, and for shorter content, it was Disney and Warner Brothers, and that was it.
So Iron Giant was not at all related to Looney Tunes universe. It's not leeching off that. It's like we're telling more than any of the other Warner Brothers animated shows. It's a fable. Here's a story set in a place and time about this child telling these universal human aspects, these universal human stories as part of it, I imagine that must have been a big departure from what Warner Brothers was regularly doing with their animation. Like someone there took a big swing.
Exactly. Well, and it introduces Brad Bird, who goes on to continue to be an exceptional storyteller. And this would be different movies for different times, but how he was additive to Toy Story 2, which is an episode you guys have already done. How if you read Creativity Inc. at Catmull's book about the Pixar story up until a certain point, he talks a lot about how Brad Bird was clutch in turning Toy Story 2 around. And then Ratatouille. There's a lot of things and then The Incredibles, which I love. I love the initial part one of that. So I do like him as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. You guys talked about Joss Whedon in a recent episode that you dropped because it was about, I think it was about Toy Story.
It's Toy Story.
Joss was involved there. And I think he's another one who he has like a there's a grown-up kid kind of a thing. There's a fable quality to them that I think they're decent at. I like how Brad Bird handles quote superheroes. I think he dances in that territory really, really well.
Yeah.
I would have been
When
really
he stepped
interested to see. I don't know. Brad Bird doesn't do anything theatrical that I know of, or live action, but I'd be curious what he would do with like the DCU or the MCU.
Well, I was going to say when they brought him into the Mission Impossible franchise, and I forget which one. I think it's the one that with
that's right.
you only
There
know
you
them
go.
in terms of their stunt, right? But I think it's the Burj Khalifa, the one where he climbs
Is
the
that
Burj
Brad?
Khalifa. I think that was Brad Bird. I know he did one of them, and I
Good, because I know Brad's listening, and if he would have heard me say he doesn't do anything live action, he'd be like, "Well, wait a minute."
Yeah, he's like, "You're fired. You're fired."
Tom Cruise jump off a very high building.
Yeah, I was there. We were all sweating. Even the way he handles that has that sense of almost cartoon stakes and proportions.
Yeah.
And like he's just, he really is so consummate. And this film, so I learned something recently about this film, that it is inspired by a tragedy in his life. I don't know if you are familiar with this backstory.
Yes. No. Yeah, I heard this.
And
well, and the original IP was also inspired by a tragedy, and then Brad drafted off an original book called The Iron Giant.
Right.
Attribution where it's due, I don't have it on hand. Then he took that, and because of Brad's tragedy that he suffered, this was the story he wanted to tell.
Yeah. So he, his sister was involved in a murder-suicide, and this was about a gun that doesn't want to be a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we'll get around to that part of the story, I think, because for me, it was a little bit surprising because that did not characterize the movie for me.
Right.
Like that idea of being what you want to be. And I think I might have stolen this from you, Joseph, that Iron Giant is actually the best Superman movie that's ever been made.
I've said that before. I don't know if you stole it from me. I probably stole it from somebody else, but yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't seen James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn, but I'm pretty sure that Iron Giant is still the best Superman movie ever made. And there's been some really good Superman.
Now that you say that, how do I can convey this without spoiling anything. If you have not seen James Gunn's Superman, there is a similar theme of Superman finding out that maybe he was meant for something different than he now wants to do. So he's aware of all of this ability that he has, and then there's a moment in the screenplay where it becomes clear to him that maybe he was not meant to be a superhero in the way that we understand Superman, and he still chooses to be that person. So like in the same way the Iron Giant surprises himself with this like weird core programming that he has when he's defensively going to become this crazy War of the Worlds insane weapon, he still chooses to be Superman. And and there's a lot in the movie where I think transparently, as I watched it again over the last 2 days, I thought, on rewatch now, I can see it being a bit preachy in a way that maybe I wouldn't have responded to in this moment, the same way I did when I first saw it. And there's still themes that I can then pick up on and kind of express in the way that I think is valuable for life, even if the way that ultimately Brad writes it is not. I don't think it's necessarily wrong-headed, but I can see it being sort of binary in a way, like this is good, bad, right, wrong in a way of using power. There is a part of it that really resonates with what I believe to be true about humans. You are who you choose to be. That the character arc of the Iron Giant himself, which is really fascinating, is what, whenever I've said I think it's the best Superman movie ever, I think it's because of that. Superman being this impervious, bulletproof, altruistic. I mean, I'm not the first person to say that can be very boring. Unless we figure out like where's the chink in the armor, where's his moral struggle, dark night of the soul. So that's why Iron Giant to me is so appealing. Yeah, I love it.
So let's jump into the story here, because this was a newer movie for me. Like I watched it for the first time. Like this came out when I was like 12. It wasn't on my radar. I hadn't really watched it much at that time. I watched it with my kids like 3 months ago. They loved it.
Did they? Okay, great.
Yeah. No, they. I mean, my 7-year-old loved it. And the little guys, they're still figuring it out. But yeah, I mean, they definitely resonated with it. But for me, it was like, all right, we're been in StoryDads mode and unpacking all this, and I'm trying to be like, okay, what's all like? People rave about this movie, and And it was weird for me because usually I'm pretty good about being able to be like, okay, here's the messages, here's all the things that are coming out. And I found myself, there's so many moments where I'm like, oh, there's something there. I don't know what that is. And then like when Joseph, when you selected this movie to talk about, I'm like, oh, I'm excited to talk to Joseph because I want to kind of mine it and figure some things out live here. So
Yeah.
because the beginning just starts with the guy on the ship, the Iron Giant comes down, and we don't know where it came from.
And then cut to the lighthouse. So it sets the tone for like, are we all in danger? Which I think is part of my premise for where it goes with the concept of gentleness that I really like to play with a lot. But you're definitely is something that could be devastating. And something, you know, there's several moments in the film where they're like, Mansley, which we'll get to Mansley, the character's great. Shooter McGavin.
Yeah.
So Mansley's like, all I know is we didn't create it, and that means it's something that gives us reason to be afraid or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it starts off with that, like, what is this thing? And our initial response should be fear.
Well, and there's no explanation of where it comes from. It's not, hey, there was some alien out there. It's that was conspicuously absent from anywhere in the script of like, here's the origins of this thing. It's just came from space.
Yeah.
And it parallels Superman. It's like the pod that crashed. It parallels E.T. It parallels what's the other one? Predator starts that way. I think drops into out of nowhere.
Okay, but all of those are like, maybe this is reading too much into it, but those are all aliens. Those are all biological beings. This is a robot. That makes me feel like robots were created for something. Who created it? Where did it come from? All those questions are spinning through my head at the very beginning. Doesn't answer them. Not important. Doesn't like.
Well, interestingly, there's a director's cut.
A far better job of humanizing a robot than Transformers that Francis ever did.
Absolutely.
Like these robots from a thing, and they've got a soul, kind of, and I got lots to say about Transformers. That's not this episode, but here's Iron Giant, which I also think is the best Transformers movie. If you're asking, this robot from somewhere that has is a sentient being with clearly a soul, and I would say that the ability is more developed than the soul is developed. His soul actually expands over the course of the film. He becomes more human in a way, if you will. But you're right. It is, it's a little bit different. And I do think of the movies, Micah, you cited, even though those are like life forms essentially that came from another planet, there was a bit of like, they don't know how to operate in this world.
Right.
In the same way that if we were to be introduced to technology we don't understand or didn't create, we'd be like, this is not applicable, or this is a threat to the way we live life now. So it definitely is foreign. It's alien.
Yeah.
And definitely set up. It's animated, directed, the sound design. It's set up to be, this is a scary thing.
Right.
This is something to watch out for.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't find out otherwise until, as the audience, we don't have any idea that he might not be terrible and destructive until Hogarth finds out on accident.
Well, and even the first thing he does when Hogarth finds him is he devours a power plant. Like, he is being destructive at that point too. So like, Hogarth is kind of going on faith when he gets all electrocuted in the wires and he saves him.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy when Hogarth. The other thing that's so fast. Two things happen in that scene, which I think is brilliant. One is, up until that moment, it is all robot. And Hogarth decides, for some nutso reason, to save this big, dangerous robot. And you might remember that when the robot goes unconscious, essentially once the power plant is shut off, when he falls back into the trees and he lets out a breath.
Yeah.
And that's some of the first sound you hear from the Iron Giant is a breath that gets expressed.
Yeah.
You could go with what that might mean.
Yeah.
And then as Hogarth is running away after that interaction, you see the Iron Giant silhouetted against the trees behind him, and he cocks his head and blinks. And in the animation, I think this is brilliant, just as a expression of art, where all of a sudden, like just that subtle movement, just in silhouette, cocks his head and blinks as he's watching Hogarth run away. You realize there's more to it than monster. And to me, it's a very moving moment there, done in the subtlest way to show that there's more to the story here.
And one of the things I love about Hogarth and the nature of like a child as a sort of like explorer and warrior is that to a kid, everything's giant. They're,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
great.
if I put myself back in that place, well, an iron giant is just another giant. I'm surrounded by them all the time. They all are stronger than me. They all have the capacity to like destroy or rescue me. And so,
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't a kid go chase down a giant made out of metal? It's just another one. And the everyday valor and bravery that it takes just to be a child, which is, I think, part of what works so well about these particularly older movies that put children in these really perilous positions. It's like, well, their whole life is perilous. Like their bones are this big. Like they're barely alive, man. And so,
which that fits with this like theme, because I view the Iron Giant as, you guys know the story better than I do, so like tell me if this metaphor's stupid, but like he's an embodiment of like humanity and humanity's potential and all that humanity could be. So he's like this ultimate version of that. And so Hogarth is going out and discovering humanity and molding it and trying to raise this thing and explain it. It's there's a superhuman, like he is an embodiment of all that is human and human potential in that.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get Jesus with it for just a second and cut to the end of the film, it really is like he represents all that humanity could be. Yeah. And even though it's sort of mixing two stories in a way, because he becomes fully alive, but also is the expression of full potential. Like he is essentially impervious and can either be the perfect protector or the perfect destroyer. So he's got all of this ability. We find out 2/3 of the way through the film with Hogarth that he can fly. It's one of my favorite moments. Like, you can fly?
You can fly.
You know?
This whole time, yeah.
And then, of course, at the end, he chooses what I believe actually is the highest form of love, where he gives himself for the salvation of another, gives himself for the benefit of the other. And then, of course, there's a resurrection in there, too. So that's all in the story. But I totally agree with you, Eric. And the reason that gentleness really stands out in the story, to me, is because we see multiple characters who have an interesting relationship with their power. So Iron Giant is figuring out, what do I want to use my power for? Yeah. Hogarth is essentially the man of the house. It's fatherless. His mom's working her butt off, to support everything. But he essentially has to kind of, quote, man up and do a lot of things. And you remember when he first realizes the Iron Giant wants to learn from him, Hogarth kind of like puffs his chest, and I'm going to teach you how to live life. I'm going to teach you how to talk, not realizing like what he's playing with. Kind of treats him like, I'm in the pole position here, as I know how to live life and you don't. Treats him like a toddler.
Like he throws his weight around and
which is so great. When you raise kids, especially when you raise boys, that is such a beautifully written character, because I'm like, that is totally a boy being totally. Dad, give me a shovel. Can I dig next to you? I want to build a thing. I want to tell the dog what to do. I want to, like, trying to find your power in the world, testing it, playing with it. It's the best.
Oh, you're talking.
And then,
Hogarth.
of course, Hogarth, for sure.
In addition to the Iron Giant, who's also, like you said, very much a toddler himself too.
Very much,
point.
Yeah. But Hogarth is like, it's interesting for however young he is. I don't know how young the character is in the film, but anyway, probably maybe 6.
Into it about 7,
11 years old,
9, 10,
yeah, because it hasn't made that turn of where there's like a romantic interest in it. So writing the character really young. He's not like a Mowgli that finds the girl with the water.
Right. Yeah. Goes through puberty like that.
Exactly. Immediately, which is our experience totally.
Which is what happens too, by the way.
Yeah. We woke up one day and we were like, woman.
Yeah, girls aren't gross anymore. What happened? Like,
exactly.
Suddenly they're all that matters.
Yeah, and our mustache grew 3 sizes that day. So this young boy who gets to play with how much authority he has in the world, but it's within sort of a safe container. Like, it can't go too far. He now has this like sphere of authority in a way. Like, he gets to sort of run the Iron Giant. And I think that's very natural for humans, and I think particularly men, to carry responsibility. So Hogarth is like, now he feels like he has to caretake this robot in the same way his mother's caretaking him. He wants to exercise some authority and play with it. And then, of course, to counterpoint that, I think beautifully as a villain, you have this villain in Mansley. And I even love, I don't know how intentional this was, that his last name is Mansley. The only way to make that more on the nose is if his name was Manley.
Yeah. Kent. I mean, it's all...
Kent Mansley.
They did it in Interstellar with Matt Damon's character. He's Dr. Mann.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Nolan got all of his best ideas from Iron Giant.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And then he comes in and he has like the posturing of power. But you can tell immediately that he is like an empty shirt. He is the representative of power, but he wants to wield it like it's his power. I even love the repeated line of, and all that implies, because you can tell that he really hasn't even thought through what he thinks about the world. He's like, just trust me. Trust me, it's bad. Trust me with what I'm doing and all that implies. So yeah, I could talk on and on about I think the character, the writing of it, and the part that stands out when you think about Iron Giant, Hogarth, Mansley, and of course there's Dean, there's all sorts of power players in this, is I think that the difference between the Iron Giant, maybe even Hogarth to some extent, is that they have the opportunity to be gentle because they are powerful. Mansley does not have the opportunity to be gentle because he's weak. And that's to me, that is such a beautiful invitation for our humanity, is not to be afraid of power, but to explore how powerful you really are, and then to figure out what it's for. And that is the height of gentleness. I think gentleness is far more of is power. I think gentleness is, I'm not the first one to think about this, but I think that gentleness is power wonderfully, beautifully applied. As a protector, as a nurturer, as a builder, as a planter, as a creator, let's find out what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And find out how many people could benefit from it. That's gentleness. Mansley doesn't have that available to him.
No.
Right.
And well, it makes me think at the end of the movie, the way they animate the Iron Giant, where he's going from his defensive, like, blasters everywhere mode, and then he comes out of that. The first thing he does is he, like, picks up Hogarth and he's, like, cradling him like this, and he's running. He's protecting him as he's going. And he's so back and forth between those two, ultimately up to the point where he does the self-sacrifice thing at the end. But it's
absolutely,
he's all of that packed into one. It particularly jumps out in that final sequence there.
Absolutely. And you even find out, again, I'll put some Jesus themes on this because I can't help myself, but in the beginning he gets a dent in his helmet. So he sort of takes on infirmity in a way, and you realize by the end of the film that he could have fixed himself like that. Because remember, he just totally like guns out. Yeah. And the first thing that he does when he like goes full, whatever that is, full attack mode, is he fixes the dent in his helmet.
Right.
And you realize like he sort of took on weakness.
He shifts into God mode there.
Paul's letter to the Philippians is like, Philippians chapter 2 is like, he who didn't have to do this took on infirmity to be like one of us. And that's exactly what the Iron, I don't know that Brad was thinking that, but I think there was, again, maybe now I'm the one that's being a little heavy-handed. I just think there's something core to our story that we can't help but tell and can't help but resonate with. And it's, we want the Savior to be like us for a while. And then when it's necessary, we need the Savior to use his power to our ultimate benefit.
Well, we've talked so much on this podcast about just how like that theme is so emergent in so many stories across so many things, where I'm sure the people in charge of this aren't steeped in biblical stuff trying to figure that out, but it's so, like you said, it's so core to humanity, it can't help but come out. And so like when you see it, it's like, well, there's that story playing out there, and that little moment where his helmet just undents there, it's like, oh, there's I know where that comes from, and I know why I resonate with it. I know why, like, as a human, it's so you connect to it, and it's like, yes, that is correct.
But also it also reminds me of in scripture when Jesus says, like, I could just call on armies of angels, you know, like that's within that's part of my arsenal, and I'm not. And the Iron Giant, his ability to be gentle, which you said about how you cannot be gentle without great power, or without, I don't know, a capacity, potentially even a capacity for violence.
I think so.
And all that implies. And so I'd love for you to like, and so what is someone who hearkens to gentleness but completely lacks any real power or agency or authority? Like, who is that? What is that actually, if it's not gentleness?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's if I understand the question right, I think there's a version of passivity that we call restraint or gentleness. And what it is fear. I'm afraid to be strong in the situation. I'm afraid I also think this is somewhat related to our misunderstanding of humility. I think a truly humble person shows up in the world confident, because a truly humble person knows who he or she is, and knows that he or she needs other people. Like that is a truly
Right.
humble person. A
Right.
humble person is somebody like, ooh, I actually can help with that. Hey, I have an answer for that. Hey, I've got resource for that. That's a humble person who actually speaks up when they can do something. They've got power available. I think the same is true for gentleness. And in the same way that can often show up like humiliation, and we call it humility. Like I'm going to be a wallflower. I'm going to disappear into the landscape. That's actually more driven by a very twisted narcissism. Well, narcissism always contorts us, but it's like this
Or
very
self-deprecation
self-serving.
does that.
Yeah.
Very much, but I'm self-serving myself. I'm going to put a moat around. I don't want to be subject to feedback. I don't want to be subject to growth. I don't want to be subject to criticism. So I'm just going to withhold. I don't want to be seen as arrogant, by speaking up and saying I'm good at a thing. And man, that gets in people's way. And where the world desperately is longing for people to step up and say, like, I have a thing that can help.
Well, you get a lot of people who don't realize how capable they actually are. And so much of what I see you do is like calling out the things people are leaving on the table there under the guise of humility or, well, I'm being gentle. I don't want to rock the boat. It's a tacit like passivity.
And so interestingly, to tie to the story, what happens when people do that, if you abdicate that place, then other folks will sneak in there and grab the microphone like Ket Mansley does. This also might be reaching a little bit, but he lacks power. He wants to be in that seat.
Right.
That seat is in this, it's not vacant, but it's in this place where, okay, like who's in charge here? And then the powerless person that seeks to be perceived powerful will go ahead and grab the mic and launch the nuke if no one else will step in and do what they need to do.
Yeah. And that becomes the potentially single most destructive act in the film. Is not from a place of power, but from a place of weakness.
Yeah, weakness and fear.
Yeah, weakness and fear. Mansley acts impetuously. Yeah. Again, like in the same way that people in the name of gentleness become passive and soft and atrophied, I think also in the name of power, people become wasteful, impetuous, destructive, and demanding. They think of the world in like in, out, right, wrong, like overplay that. I do think there's a right and wrong, but like overplaying it so that their world stays perfectly curated. Mansley had one version of this story. There's only one way this can go.
Yeah.
And even in the face of new evidence, he's like, I can't shake my one version of the story, launch the nukes, and it's potentially going to be fatal. So,
well, it's out of a panic mode. It's out of a like, okay, this robot might actually be protecting us. No, that can't be true. Launch it.
Yeah.
Even if I have to blow myself up and everyone else up in the process, like,
well, because he would have to be wrong, right?
That. Yeah, he would have to be wrong, and I think that to him is probably the scariest thing.
That's
in
worse than death.
His whole life. Yeah, the worst thing for him would be to find out he was wrong. And
now, can I reach again?
Being wrong. Yeah.
Please. But let me reach again. That we are not given a spirit of fear, but we're given a spirit of power and love and a sound mind. And in that moment, you've got the Iron Giant, you've got Mom, you've got Dean, you've got Hogarth. Like, so you have power, love, and sound mind all in this little collective of our heroes.
That's great.
And it is that little collective that, and in the end, he is a gun. He's just an anti-missile gun. He's essentially an Iron Dome, system.
He is.
But he's a gun for good, right? Which kind of comes back to another thing.
Which is the proper place for that aggression, which is what we're talking about.
Which comes back to that idea of being who you want to be, and the idea of power is the movie gets a little heavy-handed with this idea of like, guns are bad. And it's like, well, unless your gun shoots down atomic missiles, then it's actually exceptionally good. And that idea of, I remember a friend was talking about, he posted something about like going to the gun range or something, and people were talking about guns, which is really hard to talk about in public and social media with any kind of, decency from either side. But I remember someone was just talking like, and so they sort of almost like sticking in just a little preamble to their actual statement. They just said, well, obviously gun violence is bad, and then continue their statement. And I was like, well, wait. Like on D-Day, when you're going to stop Adolf Hitler, some of the gun violence was great. And if someone is coming to hurt a bunch of people, then like a very specific, like surgically applied gun violence is actually wonderful. And And, I just think of like the end of Die Hard, right? When the guy comes out and then like, he pulls the gun and it's a big shot that pans down and like he gets that one clean shoot and you're like, gun violence. And, and that
I love
like
when
his, I think that's actually what they said.
That line in the script was solid.
Yeah. Every Christmas, that's what we say around the tree.
Well, and I really resonate. The end of the film, it's like whatever you believe about the world, it's like we can't help ourselves. I have a theory, I could be wrong about this, but I have a theory that the Iron Giant had the ability to shoot down the missile. And instead, he decided to absorb the missile. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a very different choice. And we see it all the time where maybe there was a different way out, but for some reason, wink, wink, we want to see our savior absorb death, take on death. And it's the end of Captain America, the first Avenger. It's like you could think of so many examples where I think it's Batman, the one with Bane, the third Nolan Batman.
Yeah.
Where he's got to fly away in the helicopter. He's got to
fly the bomb away. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to take on death. And you could look at the screenplay and poke holes in it and be like, well, wait a minute. If he had the power to do that, he probably had the power to do this, or there was other ways out. He could have, who knows what. Captain America could have ejected from the thing.
Doesn't work for the story, though. It doesn't. It's not going to resonate, right?
But what's satisfying, interestingly enough, because we haven't even talked about villain comeuppance yet, but what's interesting enough is like a hero comeuppance, not comeuppance, but like a hero, there is a crucifixion that we long to see, even though we hate seeing it. We don't want it to happen, and yet it's strangely satisfying that the Iron Giant would take on death.
Because if the Iron Giant just goes full on like laser beam, just shoots down, don't worry guys, I got this, zaps it. It doesn't resonate.
It kind of doesn't work.
It doesn't have the staying power. It doesn't work. The story falls apart.
Yeah, I want to see him take on death. I want to see him memorialized. I want to see it galvanize a community around this Iron Giant that now represents the best of us.
Yep. And then you want to see him come back, right? Also, like after the little symbolism, after he blows up, like the star in the sky looks conspicuously animated like the Star of Bethlehem over the manger. Like it.
I did want to calculate how long it would take that little bolt to roll its way to Iceland from Maine.
Yeah. Just to see when the sequel is coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, how long would it take at that rate? I didn't look it up though, I'm sure.
Okay, if we really get into overanalyzing, what is that? Is that the church age? How long it takes for the body of Christ to come over?
Why
centuries?
Why not?
Let's go there.
There's something to it. There's like we somehow know that like the hero's journey isn't complete until there has been a crucifixion experience.
Yeah.
And in the micro, we all experience, like we all know that whatever we're going through in our lives, as minuscule as it might be, whatever little patch of growth and the suffering that comes with growth, or the suffering that comes with trying to aspire to power or competence so that we can be gentle, we all know that there's a little death in there. And so, even
well said,
without the Christology part of it, it still bears out in our daily experience. And so to have it magnified like that is obvious, or is not obvious, but is necessary. And I think strong storytelling. And
and speaking of strong storytelling, I would be remiss not to comment on, frankly, my favorite quality of this film is the film itself. Like, I use what you want, obviously, for your audience, but one of the reasons I love this podcast, and I really do listen to it, not only because it feels like hanging out with two of my best friends, but I just love the way that you process and think through these things on multiple layers: psychological, philosophical, theological, and then the art form itself. And I think about this film and I think this film is riotously funny. The voice acting, particularly of the kid, and I have it on good authority.
So good.
There's a dearth of great kid actors. This kid, credit where it's due. Again, I don't remember this kid's name. We could look this up easily, but he is spectacular. His voice acting is incredible.
Yeah.
So Eli or Elias or something. I looked it up one time.
It looks like Eli Marienthal.
Eli Marienthal, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're up to, you crushed it in this.
Yeah.
There's so many comedic beats. I could talk about any number of the scenes, but one of my favorites is like, there's that montage of Mansley calling him all the different nicknames, like Slugger, Chief.
Yeah.
His authority is like diminishing, and Hogarth's mind is like, this guy, my God.
This guy's an idiot.
I just want to go hang out with the guy with the real power.
Yeah.
And the standoff that they have. There's like the staring
in the
contest
hallway, across the hallway.
game of chicken.
Yeah.
And then what's so beautiful about that scene too is that this is just part of the craft of it that I respect so much, is the way that it's shot. If you remember, is they're looking across the hall and they're playing the staring contest game of chicken kind of thing. And then Hogarth goes to sleep. Mansley looks at his watch, and then it cuts to his watch 3 hours later, and Hogarth walks down the hallway. So you realize there's 3 hours unaccounted for. And they do this it's such tight storytelling.
Yeah.
Like in
no words,
20 seconds, you realize Hogarth got up to something.
Yeah.
And Mansley's not going to like it.
Yeah.
But it's winsome and funny, and a 7-year-old would understand it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it as a almost 50-year-old. So yeah. So much in it that I love.
And what I love about animation that we've talked about before is that like there is nothing accidental in animation, but by the time it gets to the end, because it's too exacting of a process. There, like the happy accidents happen way early in the process where you don't get to see them. And then whatever makes it to the end has been through thousands and thousands of rounds of reduction. And so like everything in it, like when you were asking, like, is his name on accident? Like highly unlikely. Like almost nothing is an accident.
Of all the names of the whole wide world you could come up with.
And just the number of people that touch the animation process, by the time it gets to the end, it is something like building a cathedral. Just the sheer number of craftspeople at such high levels of ability that are all put together for one purpose. And that purpose is story. Harkening back to what you said at the beginning, the importance of story is like we are building these little temporal cathedrals to an idea. And so, even when we talk about movies that don't connect really to hero's journey or classical Western canon, like they are still hearkening to some canon. They are building cathedrals to something.
Right.
And, And so one of the things, again, sort of, we talked about like rules of screenwriting in a previous clip that people liked, but like one of the things in film school, and this is just 101, like, not that I'm an expert or anything, but one of the things that they kind of wrestle with in terms of visual storytelling, like the games that they kind of assign you early in your training, is depict the passage of time, because you can do it poorly and you can do it really obviously. And so when you go back and you watch old movies, you always see the same stuff because it wasn't a cliche yet. They were still figuring out the art form. So it's calendars, pages peeling off, zoom in on it, right? So that's your brain goes there right away. Right. Yeah. And so as a visual storyteller, avoiding cliche is like you live and die on avoiding cliche. And so they figured out how to break that rule with showing a clock, because showing the clock wasn't showing the passage of time. It was the payoff for the gag.
Yeah.
And so you can do the cliche because you're breaking the cliche.
It packs both of those in that one little
Yeah. And
so that's great.
Little stuff like that
on that level.
Yeah.
I have I will speak this into the universe, so to speak. I have such profound respect for filmmaking, all of it. And when I see anything that is even decent, I see it as a miracle. When I see it where it's like resonant, I come back to it over and over again. I'm like, wow, how hopefully anybody who would ever listen to this, who's a part of creating the Iron Giant, like, well done. Oh my goodness, you're a part of something pretty unique.
Special.
And which I know you have touched on. I think that's the episode that you're referring to, Micah. But what you guys have celebrated often is just I think the significance of the collective art form. Film is so unique in that sense. Live theater. There's other crafts where a team comes together to do a thing, but to come together to tell a story is its own really interesting multiple becoming one. And if it ever works out, is a miracle. The steps of the process, like what can happen when you're filming gets ruined in the edit. What works in the edit gets ruined in the sound design. So to really get this comprehensive, beautiful delivery of something that I've watched, I don't know how many times, is pretty cool that we are around to enjoy it. So well done, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's well said. Like, as much as we might dog on any particular movie or creator or something, it really does come from this place of like, like, first, let me say you're a superhuman among mortals. But given that, let's talk about the way Hermes screwed over Zeus in this thing. But absolutely.
Both miracles. This was not your best one.
Yeah.
Well, it's what you guys said, where it's like this whole thing. You're building a cathedral. You're building a cathedral to something. Now it could be something I think is destructive, or something that is dangerous, or something that is beautiful, or something that is wacky, or whatever, somewhere in between. So what is the thing that this collective work of art that's put in 1 million hours actually celebrating?
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what we talk about, is like, we're trying to point out, like, hey, here's a lot of the things that are being depicted, that are being acknowledged, that are being separated. And sometimes it has, at the peak of its powers, it has this universal appeal that resonates with everyone. Hence, we talk a lot on hero's journey stories and Christ stories and all these things that I think are so deeply ingrained in that.
Yeah.
So villain comeuppance. Yeah. This is an interesting one, because it is it's soft in a way.
It is.
Mansley.
It's the Iron Giant's hand stops him in a Jeep, so he's probably going to have to answer to the authorities, and all that implies. His comeuppance is kind of and all that implies, as opposed to he gets, impaled on something.
No, but I do think there's a we've talked about often for villains, there's a revealing of his character. Like at the end, he is this panicked guy who's revealed as an empty suit. He's just following orders. His general says, like, you idiot, you moron here, like, this thing is headed right for us. And then, screw my country, I want to live.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
totally naked at that moment, right?
We're all gonna die here for our country. Screw my country, I want to live. So he's revealed as the coward he is. He goes in, he wants to go away. The Iron Giant says, nope, you're staying here. You have to face your humiliation and the punishment that will inevitably come your way with that.
Yeah.
No, that's a great observation. He reveals himself for what he has been the whole time, which was not news to anybody else, but
it's not news to the audience, but it's to his army that is with him, and his boss, and now the community.
This has always been about me, which again, counterpoint to the Iron Giant, which his moment of greatest violence was to protect Hogarth. I'm going to, wrap him in myself and protect him. So I think that was a beautiful counterpoint. And all joking aside, I don't think we would have been satisfied if, in the context of this film, the villain had been impaled on something.
Yeah.
Well, if the theme is the Iron Giant with the ability for great violence is choosing gentleness, is choosing protection, it doesn't make sense to brutally impale the villain on something there, right?
Or to make him come with you, or
or like blast him away before you go up or whatever. Like it totally runs counter to that. So like,
it's almost like the most violent thing we could have done to that villain is expose his weakness.
Right. And what, for someone whose entire existence is built around their facade of authority and dedication, to strip that away is this like abject humiliation. And in a weird way, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like there's something C.S. Lewis says in The Great Divorce, when the George MacDonald character is talking to the C.S. Lewis character, and he talks about how God sort of invites us to either say thy will be done, or else he looks at us and says thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
So like this is sort of almost, it fast forwards the inevitable end of Kent Mansley, like he in one moment. Is that all these things that he's grasping for, it's kind of like, great, now you've got all the power and all the responsibility in the world. Let's see how that goes. And it's like colossal failure. And
so we've talked about villain comeuppance on like Scar. His lies catch up to him, and he's torn apart by the hyenas and the minions, the people he's lied to.
In an inferno.
Well, right, which is a very like
it's just full Milton
side of it. Well, it's the Old Testament. It's the nature of reality, of how reality works when these things kind of catch up to you. So the Iron Giant, as a New Testament Christ story, as he's making this, like the villain comeuppance is your sin is revealed, your inadequacies are on display for everyone. he has a punishment to enact. Now, the Iron Giant isn't going to be the executor of that. And Mansley, I imagine after this, does have the opportunity for some sort of repentance. Maybe in a next story, he is turned around and reveals. But it is distinctively from a New Testament lens is what I'm seeing there.
It is him getting no more or less than the actual results of his choices.
Yes,
like
exactly.
And that is justice. It's not it's not lopsided. It's like when the grace of God is removed, like any buffer that might create in your life, let's remove that for a second, and you just get to experience the results of your choices. That's actually the punishment. That is hell.
Right. Yeah. And it's not punitive.
Experience.
Yeah.
It's just life without redemption, it's life completely self-serving. And the results are a disaster.
Because if whatever would be on the other side of like this story, if there's any opportunity for Mansley to redeem himself, it has to involve like, I was a total asshole and colossally effed up throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. And sorry, I almost killed all of Maine.
Like the whole Cold War. Like you got a heavy burden on your shoulders to carry with you for that. Well, I see like when people have to want to repair the damage they've done in relationships, often like when I work with people, like it has to involve an accounting for that. Like I caused colossal damage here, and if I want to repair that has to be acknowledged. You can't move forward if that's not acknowledged. So whatever would be on the other side for a character like Mansley, like he's either a total pariah, will never work in the government again, everyone hates that guy, we don't ever speak his name, or maybe there's been a redemption arc which involves some sort of accounting for that.
And probably therapy at your office.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to say
I did look up.
I can neither confirm nor deny I have a client named Mansley.
Before we wrap, I think this is crucial. I did look up how long it would take for the Bolt to travel to Iceland from Rockwall, Maine at a slow amble, which is 1 mile per hour, accounting for ocean floors and mountains if it was going to go in a straight line. Okay. And it takes less time than I would have predicted. According to the AI, this would take 98 days and 19 hours. Right. So I think Hogarth, which also leads me to believe that, so the statue would have been erected before the Bolt was summoned back. So I suppose whatever time elapsed there, however long it takes to make a statue, Mike, I look to you to speak with authority on that. I don't know how long it takes to make a statue.
I did want to talk about Dean a little bit, but
yeah, but Hogarth hasn't aged much. We see that because he's playing with the kids. He's about the same age. The room looks the same, so it hasn't taken too long. And then it's going to take another roughly 100 days for the Iron Giant to be made whole again.
Assuming that's the last part.
Yeah, the most distant part. That's true. So I think a sequel is actually, I hope they never do a sequel. But
no, I hope they don't. Right.
I don't know if they could land it at this point.
Okay,
but if they do, it better be Brad Bird.
No, Mike, I'd love to. I know we're coming to the end here. I'd love to get a quick take on you with the Harry Connick Jr. Dean character as our resident artist here.
Yeah, we've not touched on him.
No, we talk about the different characters that you identify with.
Or Nick from Family Ties, as he also reminds us of. Full circle.
But always from moment one, it was like identify with the weirdo, like I identify with
that's
Dean.
Micah, right?
Yeah. So that was going to happen anyway. But
I think they're called kooks.
But yes, I think so. I think the technical term in the 60s. The idea of like everyone having power, one of the great things about that character Dean is the power he wields is not only is he the only beneficial adult male in the character's life, but he wields coolness, and cool is like an insane level of power for children.
Totally.
And so much so that they might try to take on new names when they go to new schools. That's an Easter egg for all of JKB's followers. And so he wields this power of cool over Hogarth, and he shares it. Like he's not stingy. He doesn't try to humiliate him. And then there's that idea, I think it's been said about like, when you acquire fame or when you acquire power, what it does is it magnifies whatever qualities you already have. So it's not that it corrupts absolutely. It can draw corrupt people towards it, but someone who's really benevolent gets power and they just get wildly benevolent. You look at like Denzel Washington is a person who is constantly giving. in a way where his left hand doesn't know what his right hand is doing. Like he's wildly benevolent. And so when Dean gets all this power, and this has got to be a referendum back to animators and artists, and Brad Bird, I'm pretty sure was a CalArts kid. Like, you give these artists this absolute power, and Dean's like, I'm gonna make the coolest stuff imaginable. Like, give me all the power. And then you have Brad Bird, who's given the power of an entire studio.
Yeah.
And he's like, let me make the coolest piece of art imaginable. So I just see a little parallel in there for Dean. So I just want to give a little shout out to Dean for the kooks.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think Dean is the one early on in the movie. I actually wrote this down in the script, but it's something around how the kooks, where is it? It's a great line that I wrote down that...
Oh, someone's got to stand up for the kooks. Is that...
Somebody's got to stand up for the kooks. If we don't stick up...
If we don't stick up for the kooks, who will?
If we don't stick up for the kooks, who will? And I see in that an invitation for Hogarth's creative place to find a home and be cultivated, because Hogarth is insanely creative. And now in Dean, it's like unbridled, like let the power, like unleash it, go crazy with your creativity. And Dean is like, yeah, like that's real power. That's real fun. So, whereas love creates, I think that's ultimate power. Love creates, then hate destroys or diminishes, or fear does, it destroys and diminishes. And so there's also something beautiful that the most powerful adult male in the movie is a creative.
Right.
And he lives in a realm of outcastness.
Right.
Like
yes.
his palace is
scrapyard.
Yeah. Let me take your garbage and make it into beauty. A little more biblical theme there.
I know.
Yeah.
Hard to shake it. It's everywhere, guys.
It's hard to shake it.
Also, hot take, Vin Diesel's best performance.
Oh, it's so good.
In
Does
his
so much with so little.
In his canon of single syllable performances, this puts Groot to shame, in my opinion.
Exactly. Oh. I think this is how he got cast as Groot.
But for real though, the amount of pathos that he puts into this like extremely tiny little bandwidth of performance is insane.
Yeah.
I prefer his voice to his face. Sorry, Vin. But like all your voice acting, I'm in. This is great. I think he does a lot with Groot. He does a ton with the Iron Giant. So
yeah.
I mean it sincerely. Like, well done, Vin.
But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's been JKB.
Thanks so much again, Joseph.
Absolutely.
Again, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. We need to say that more. We're excited. We've been putting these out and starting to get some traction from people that are just beyond our friends. So let your friends know, and please, in the comments, if this sparks anything. Funnest part for me about doing these things is the discussions it sparked, like the one we're having with Joseph today. But friends, people who've listened to this, this made me think of this. Like, that's the biggest compliment I could get around this. So if anything strikes you, obviously it helps us out in the comments. But even more than that, we'd love to just continue fun conversations wherever we can with that. So inviting whoever in the audience to that.
Yep. It's good, especially when we're way off base.
Especially when we're way off base.
All right, y'all. Like and subscribe to join us for some navel gazing and occasionally super insightful depth in analyzing kids' movies and the occasional dad's night out.
It's like giving your kids goldfish in the car. It keeps them going for another 40 minutes.